Wake up! It's the Saturday Morning Podcast. Let mom and dad sleep in and come back with me to the 80s. Let's grab a bowl of Golden Puffs or Apple Cinnamon Cheerios and flip on the tube. I've got the TV guide and hours of nothing to do. My name is Chris, and I love all the Saturday morning cartoons. When I was a kid, I lived for Saturday mornings. Now that I'm an adult, I want to relive all those great shows and see where they came from. Let's take a deep dive back to the 80s and see what's waiting. Rewind! This week, we were sent a Saturday morning memory. Hey Chris, I remember being up on Saturday mornings before the cartoon started and having to watch New Zoo Review while waiting. What I was really waiting for, come 1985 or so, was WWF Wrestling at noon on the USA Network. One of my favorite cartoons in the 80s was Spider-Man and Friends. I remember an episode with Swarm and Loki. It had a lot of episodes with a good mix of action, humor, and fantasy. The dumbest cartoons I remember was Rubik the Amazing Cube and Turbo Teen, though that might have been a weekday show. My other favorites included Dungeons & Dragons, Cops, another weekday show, and Fat Albert. Looking forward to the next episode. Thank you, Damon. Thanks, Damon, for taking the time to remind us of those great shows. I can imagine that a lot of us listening can relate to getting up early and waiting. I never wanted to get up early on the weekdays, but getting up at 6 a.m. on a Saturday didn't seem like a chore. My wait for it show was Whiz Kids, a game show for kids like a Junior Jeopardy. By the way, Turbo Teen was a Saturday show. You remembered correctly. It aired in 1984 on ABC in the 9:30 time slot. If anyone else would like to share their Saturday morning memories, please send them to satmornpod@hotmail.com. Now, on to the Smurfs. Be sure to stick around for a minute or two when the show is over. That's where we'll be recognizing our patrons. Through the woods, deep in a forest, stand little mushroom houses, the dwelling of the tiny blue creatures we know as the Smurfs. Premiering on NBC in September 1981, the Smurfs told the story of a hidden village led by Papa Smurf as he kept his people safe from the evil Gargamel, a human who hopes to catch and exploit the blue creatures. Let's go into the village and meet all of the Smurfs named for their personalities. Hold on to your tiny white hats as we lollygag through the countryside as we explore the world of the Smurfs.
Long, long ago, deep in the forest, there was a hidden village where tiny creatures lived. They called themselves Smurfs. They were good. There was Gargamel, the evil wizard. He was bad.
Oh, I hate Smurfs. I'll get you. I'll get all of you if it's the last thing I ever do. Oh, I'll get you. I'll find your village someday. You'll be sorry.
Well, the forest is still there. And if you listen, you may hear Gargamel's rage. And if you are good, you may just catch a glimpse of the Smurfs.
In the fall of 1981, NBC launched the Smurfs in the 8:30 time slot. It was part of the NBC Superstar Saturday. The copy in the ads read, "What are the biggest little creatures on TV? The Smurfs! Those famous fun-loving adventurers striving to uphold their true blue spirit of love and happiness." Will Papa Smurf and the gang outsmart the evil wizard Gargamel? Smurftonly! The Smurfs live in a forest in little mushroom houses. They are a kind of elf-like creature that's blue in color and 3 apples high. The Smurfs are considered to be magical or mythical or rare to human folk. Not too far from the Smurf village is an old wizard named Gargamel who spends his time with his mean-tempered cat, Azrael. The wizard and his cat scheme to get the Smurfs to make gold, or to eat them. Gargamel's motive tends to shift as the story needs it to. No matter the motive, obsession drives him to hunt and collect his little blue foes. Leading the heroic Smurfs is Papa Smurf. He's old, wise, bearded and the only one to sport the color red. Papa is the village elder, having lived a full life over the course of 500 plus years. He's concerned with the well-being of the village. He wants to make sure the others are happy and in balance. Papa Smurf is described as being giving and willing to lend a hand to those in need. Smurfette is easy to find in the village. She's the only girl with blonde hair. Come to think of it, she's the only girl, and because of that, she suffers from being the damsel in distress a lot of the time. She was originally a spy created by Gargamel out of blue clay with the spell, sugar and spice, but nothing nice, crocodile tears, half a pack of lies, a chatter of a magpie, and the hardest stone for her heart. Papa Smurf magically turned Smurfette into a real Smurf after she admitted her attempts to destroy the village. Brainy Smurf is, perhaps, the smartest of all the blue folk. The name says it all. He's not just smart, he's a know-it-all. He's constantly telling others that they're wrong and why. He uses facts and logic to support his point of view. He can't leave wrong information alone. He feels like he's providing a service through his correction. Oftentimes, his point of view is discouraging and insulting. He's distinguished by a pair of glasses that, I'm sure, have been broken more times than Brainy can count. In addition to these Smurfs, there are a ton more. From the muscle of Hefty, to the fix-it know-how of Handy, to the exploding gifts of Jokey. The names of the characters tell you all you need to know, even if their traits make them fairly terrible. I mean, an exploding box? No one wants that. Why do you put up with this guy? Why didn't they just throw him in a deep hole with Murdery Smurf and call it a day? I guess that shows the true wisdom and patience of Papa Smurf. Pierre Culliford, better known by his nickname Peo, was the creator of the Smurfs. He was an artist and writer who worked in the medium of comic strips. Hailing from Belgium, he is best known for the Smurfs and Johan and Peewit. Born in 1928 to an English father and a Belgian mother, young Pierre took his professional name, Peo, from an English cousin who could not pronounce his actual name. The young artist started his career at a small Belgian animation studio that folded shortly after World War II. The first comics he produced were for a Belgian newspaper, The Latest Hour. It would be in this newspaper that Peo would create the character Johan, the basis for the Johan and Peewit comic strip for Spirou, a Franco-Belgian comics magazine. On October 23, 1958, a Smurf appeared for the first time in the Johan and Peewit comic in a storyline called The Sixth Smurfed Flute. The following year, the Smurfs were in their own series. In the early 1960s, Peo started his own studio and staffed it with talented artists. While the Smurfs were his creation, he left the art and stories to the new artist at the studio. Peo himself oversaw the day-to-day production while still hands-on with Johan and Peewit, but took more of a business position in his own studio. Peo once said that the Smurfs were inspired by trolls and Nordic fairy tales. He colored them blue, believing that children would find it a pleasant color. The Smurfs became a sensation in their own right. There was Smurf merchandise as early as 1959 in the form of PVC figures. A series of records by Pierre Cartner proved to be a success, not just in Europe, but internationally. The merchandising boomed. PVC figures were made of many of the characters, such as Papa Smurf, Normal Smurf, and Angry Smurf. As the comics continued, more Smurf characters were created and merchandised. Not only were they sold in toy stores, but as part of a tie-in with Kellogg's cereals and as a giveaway at gas stations. By the mid-1970s, Smurfs were starting to dominate the world. In 1976, The Smurfs and the Magic Flute was created in Brussels and released in theaters. The movie was a hit locally. With Smurf Mania taking off in 1977, Pierre Cartner was asked to write a song about the Smurfs. Cartner, better known by his stage name Father Abraham, wrote the Smurf Song. Unsure of the commercial appeal, the record company only pressed 1,000 copies, all of which sold out at a festival in one day. The record company ran a second pressing, ordering an astounding 400,000 copies of the Smurf Song. The single was a success and a full Smurf album followed. Over the years, Father Abraham went back to the Smurf well and found material for several other albums, which sold a combined 25 million copies worldwide. While traveling through Belgium in 1976, American media and entertainment entrepreneur Stuart R. Ross found the Smurfs and was intrigued. He quickly worked with Peyo to secure the North American character rights. Ross saw the attraction of the characters and managed to bring the Smurfs merchandise to America. Then president of NBC, Fred Silverberg, bought his daughter Melissa a Smurf doll while in Aspen, Colorado. His daughter loved it, and Silverberg believed that the Smurfs would be a great contribution to the Saturday morning lineup. Peyo was recruited to the series as story supervisor, a position he would hold through the run of the show. Animation veterans Hanna-Barbera were on board to produce, continuing the style of Peyo's designs and look from the Magic Flute movie. To bring the series to life, Hanna-Barbera cast Papa Smurf, Brainy, Smurfette, and the Vile Gargamel from a crop of well-known voice actors to form the perfect cast. Topping the cast of the Smurfs was Don Messick, a voiceover artist who had been with Hanna-Barbera in the early days. Born in 1926, Messick wanted to entertain at an early age, even supporting himself through the art of ventriloquism. In 1944, he joined the Army and served in Special Services, giving him an opportunity to perform for the troops. His big break came when he voiced Raggedy Andy on The Raggedy Ann Show, airing on the Mutual Broadcasting Radio Network in Los Angeles. Messick became friends with Daws Butler and often performed as a team at Hanna-Barbera, performing characters together over the course of many cartoons. Messick played Boo Boo to Butler's Yogi Bear and assumed the sidekick role time and time again. But all that changed in 1969 when Messick was cast as the title character in Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? From playing the crime-solving mutt until the Smurfs premiered in 1981, he acted in over 70 productions, voicing hundreds of characters. By the time he played the wise elder Papa Smurf, Messick was in a slew of other Saturday morning cartoons all at the same time. Paul Winchell, born in 1922 and also a ventriloquist, was cast as the evil wizard Gargamel, hunter of the Smurfs. While he was an actor both on the screen and through voice work, Winchell had a very unique credit to his name. Having had medical training and being an inventor, he holds a patent for designing an artificial heart. Ironic since, as the Smurfs menace Gargamel, he portrayed an evil wizard with no heart. While Winchell was a staple of Hanna-Barbera, with shows like Dastardly and Muttley and their flying machines, Goober and the Ghost Chasers, and Hong Kong Phooey, he had quite the career with Disney. At the Mouse House, he was the official voice of Tigger in the Winnie the Pooh featurettes. He was in the role of Tigger that won him an Academy Award for Winnie the Pooh and Tigger 2. He had the perfect raspy voice for playing Gargamel. Danny Goldman was perfectly cast as the ultra-irritating know-it-all Brainy. A native New Yorker born in 1939, Goldman was known for performing in front of the camera in movies and television. He also had a 30-year career as a casting director, helping to find talent for commercials. Lucille Bliss, born in 1916, was cast as Smurfette. She came with a long, impressive list of acting credits to her name. For Disney, she voiced characters in Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, and Peter Pan. Bliss became an actress despite the wishes of her piano-playing mother, who wished her to be an opera singer. To the role of Smurfette, she brought an edge and almost tomboy nature and completed the circle of talent that was to breathe life into the Smurfs. Looking at the credits for all the actors who rolled through the Smurfs, either as a guest actor or credited as additional voices, is astounding. The names jump off the screen, and there are hundreds of them. I could easily spend hours reporting on all the actors that visited the forest. I mean, these are people who had careers or were headed for their fame. And they included William Christopher of Father Mulcahy fame on the long-running MASH series, who played Angel Smurf. Phil Hartman is credited as additional voices, but visited the Smurfs on his way to Saturday Night Live and Pee-wee's Playhouse. Credited the same way is Ruth Buzzy, known for her comedy work on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. Lastly, Actor, comedian, and perpetual child Jonathan Winters lent his vocals as Grandpa Smurf. While there are too many people to list here, if you're interested, I encourage you to check the IMDb listing for all the actors. It's long and bonkers and really shows how popular the Smurfs were. After these messages, we'll be right back.
We'll return to our program after these messages.
Hooray, it's car wash day. Get ready for the fun. Good times are coming your way. Rolling in one by one. Working hard, playing hard. Helping your friends along. A Big Mac and a Coke will keep you going strong. Yeah, you're really moving up. Keep rolling. Working hard, working fast. You can carry out a bag of fun. Make the good times last. When you've been working hard all day, what a day. Then you can't celebrate today. At McDonald's.
Ray Raisin, your roving reporter here to ask, did Kellogg's just put more raisins in their raisin bran? What's the scoop, son? 2 bigger scoops.
2 bigger scoops of raisins are the reason Kellogg's Raisin Bran so pleasing.
Now I ripen 2 bigger scoops for every box as part of this nutritious breakfast.
2 bigger scoops of raisins.
2 scoops.
In Kellogg's Raisin Bran.
What's more raisins? That's 1 big scoop. Nope, it's 2 bigger scoops.
We now return to our program.
If you watched the premiere of The Smurfs, the date was September 12th, 1981. Ronald Reagan was the President of the United States. America was listening to Lionel Richie and Diana Ross duet on Endless Love, the #1 song in the land. Moviegoers went to the theaters to see Kathleen Turner and William Hurt in the thriller Body Heat. Future actress and singer Jennifer Hudson was born on this day. The TV Guide was the special fall preview highlighting all the new shows for 1981. If you were a kid in 1981, maybe you got up early and got yourself breakfast. Maybe you had cereal, like a bowl of banana frosted flakes or orange blossom cereal. If you were an NBC kid, you knew that NBC had the POW with their Superstar Saturday. The lineup started with the Flintstones comedy show at 8 o'clock. If you were anxious to see the Smurfs, you didn't have to wait long. The Smurfs premiered at 8:30 with the Astro Smurf. In the opening, there's a medieval castle and a kingdom, a forest where tiny creatures live. We see the Smurfs' mushroom houses and Papa Smurf conducting a Smurf symphony. The evil wizard Gargamel lives on a hill in a rundown, lightning-prone house. It's in darkness and shadow. The big-nosed, bald wizard comes after the Smurfs, but he falls into a hollow log and vows he'll find their village one day. At his shadowy chateau, Gargamel insists that he must find the Smurf village. He talks to his ragged orange cat, Azrael, in his wizard's lab. Gargamel works on a potion that will find the Smurfs. The fire it produces burns Azrael's tail, sending the cat onto the ceiling. Gargamel declares his potion done and produces a crystal ball that will show him the Smurf village. When asking for the most miserable creatures of all, the crystal ball shows him an image of himself and Azrael. Finally, the ball shows him the Smurf village, but the tiny blue creatures are not to be seen. Where are they? They're indoors, celebrating the Smurf Day of Dreamy Smurf. Blowing out his candles, Dreamy makes a wish to fly to a planet no Smurf has ever smurfed before. He fantasizes about flying off to a strange new world replete with volcanoes. Back in reality, Dreamy sighs at the notion he'll never fulfill his dream. He wants to be a space traveler and smurf to the stars. When morning comes, he's got an idea. Grabbing a huge kite, a gust of wind lifts him and the kite into the air and he's flying towards his dream. But he's not. The lightning and dark clouds fry his kite and he crashes back to the village. All the others point and laugh at him. Dreamy is now determined more than ever to reach the stars. Dreamy casts a magic spell on a broom to make it fly, and it does, straight away from Dreamy, knocking Grouchy over and causing havoc all over the village. Dreamy finally takes to the air and crashes into a tree. The others are there to point and laugh and ridicule him again. Dreamy declares he will smurf to the stars one day. He hopes. While walking the forest alone, Dreamy almost walks into Azrael's waiting mouth before Smurfette saves his life. Dreamy confides he was daydreaming and he's depressed because he'll never smurf to the stars. When a rogue leaf falls on Dreamy's face, he knows he can somehow build a ship that will take him to far-off worlds. Gargamel and Azrael rush off through the forest, following the crystal ball to track the Smurfs. The wizard trips and falls, but recovers his beloved crystal ball. At the Smurf village, a trumpet accompanies Baker Smurf reading a proclamation that Dreamy will be smurfing to the stars. It's launch day for Dreamy's big rocket, and the Smurfs are gathered to watch. Impressed that the Astro ship is so huge, and with Dreamy in full Astro suit, Papa declares that the ship is Smurfy, but wonders if it will work. Brady predicts that it won't work, and why no one punches him is beyond me. Dreamy counts down and tries to lift off by pedaling the craft. When the Astro ship doesn't lift off, Brainy declares he was right, Smurfette, come on, you've got like one uppercut in you, right? Just let loose on Brainy, you'd do the world a favor. Dejected, Dreamy knows he'll never smurf to the stars. Even Papa Smurf fears it'll never happen. But it was Dreamy's Smurf Day wish, and all Smurf Day wishes come true. If I had a Smurf Day wish, I'd wish for Brainy to fall off a cliff because he's terrible. All the Smurfs gather again, and Papa Smurf tells Dreamy that Handy looked over the ship and fixed everything. Papa gives Dreamy a raspberry elixir, which he drinks without question and gives his ship another try. While Dreamy is in his ship, all the other Smurfs create the illusion that the ship is blasting off and traveling through space to a strange new world. Dreamy falls asleep because of the raspberry roofie potion, and the others spring into action. The ship is taken apart, and they will travel the next day to a secret location. That night, Papa Smurf makes a potion that will fool Dreamy into believing he has achieved his dream. The village works together to travel over the hills and through the woods to arrive at an inactive volcano. Gargamel and Azrael follow tracks that seem to be leading them to the Smurfs. The wizard follows his magic ball across the river, bringing them closer to their prey. At the volcano, the Smurfs reassemble the Astro ship and place a sleepy Dreamy in it. They are well on their way to tricking him into believing the illusion. Papa explains his plan. His potion will transform them all into swoofs, a green version of a Smurf, posing as primitive alien natives. Dreamy, now going by the handle Astro Smurf, wakes and explores his strange new world. He's greeted with hostile spears and finds Brainy and Clumsy, now in swoof form. Astro Smurf speaks in short, broken English and breaks the English barrier with the natives. It's definitely a throwback to the white man's treatment and communication with Native Americans in old movies. These Smurfs are definitely not woke. Going to the Swoof village, Astro Smurf meets Grandpa Swoof, Papa in disguise. Astro Smurf declares he's a friend, and a council will meet to determine if this is true. Gargamel and Azrael are getting closer. At the council, Astro Smurf is declared a friend, and a huge celebration ensues. Astro Smurf is so comfortable, he wants to stay with the Swoofs forever, and he wants to forget about Earth and the village back home. Brainy and Clumsy secretly report to Papa that Gargamel is coming. Not only does Papa need to find a way to defeat Gargamel, he needs to make the Swoofs so unpleasant that Astro Smurf will want to leave. Checking his crystal ball, Gargamel finds the Swoofs and seems angered that they are not Smurfs. Papa casts a spell that zaps lightning at Gargamel's butt, making him drop his crystal ball, which smashes on the rocks. The cloud then makes rain and hail and ruins Gargamel's day. With a scared Azrael on his face, Gargamel runs away and back to his home, chased by butt-hungry lightning. The next day, Grandpa Swoof tells Astro Smurf he can stay in the village if he can prove himself worthy. Astro Smurf is blindfolded, spun around, and must drive a spear into a target's bullseye. He throws, and the spear hits rocks and rebounds towards the Smurfs before hitting the bullseye. For the second challenge, Astro Smurf must climb pole. You heard, he must climb pole. Grandpa Smurf said it just like that. The Smurfs talk among themselves, declaring it will take Astro Smurf 1,000,000 years to get up a greased pole. But Clumsy forgot to grease it. When Astro Smurf gets to the top in record time, he declares it's a piece of Smurf. And that's how I feel about Brainy. He's a real piece of Smurf, if you know what I mean. The third challenge is for Astro Smurf to swim across a lake holding a rock that's super heavy if you're 3 apples high. Astro Smurf picks up a rock, but it's not rock. It's light pumice stone, and he's off easily across the river. The last challenge is to see if Astro Smurf can live like a Smurf, cooking all meals, cleaning up after everyone, and kissing everyone's feet when they meet. Grandpa Smurf makes life sound awful, and Astro Smurf decides to Smurf back to Earth. Grandpa Smurf makes life sound awful, and Astro Smurf decides to Smurf back to Earth. As before, Astro Smurf gets tired in his Astro ship and falls asleep. The Smurfs reverse all their deeds and go back to the village. When asked how much longer to the village, Papa Smurf loses his cool and tells them to Smurf off. Yeah, you know what he really means. Astro Smurf wakes up back home at the village, and he tells how he met the Smurfs. But because of his travels, he finds there's no place like home. Meanwhile, Gargamel is seen running through the forest with Azrael, vowing revenge on the Smurfs and taking lightning jabs to the backside. Of the 258 episodes produced across 9 seasons of Saturday morning television, many are highly rated, averaging somewhere between 6 and 7 on a scale of 10. Even the lowest episodes garnered a 5.6 by fans. According to the fans, here are the top 5 episodes of The Smurfs. Number 5, Breakfast at Greedy's and The Secret of Shadow Swamp. In the first segment of the Season 4 show, Gargamel pushes himself to catch Smurfs to please his mother. The story borrowed elements of the original comic book story, The Flying Smurf. In Shadow Swamp, we find Grouchy Smurf hating the idea of his birthday, and he runs away to the Shadow Swamp. Grouchy encounters dismal bogs, an imp-like creature, and agrees to brave dangers to get to the Enchanted Falls. Number 4, Smurf Quest, a 4-segment, 2-part episode that opened Season 6 in 1986. It dealt with Grandpa Smurf's return to the village after an epic 500-year voyage around the world. Grandpa sets out to restore the power of the Long Life Stone. Papa and the others set out on a new Smurf quest to find the elements needed to restore the stone: earth, fire, water, and air. If they can't restore the source of the Smurf's long life, they will rapidly age and be destroyed. This episode marked the debut of Grandpa Smurf, voiced by Jonathan Winters. Number 3, Johan's Army. Johan and Peewit recruit the Smurfs to help protect the castle when his army becomes useless in this 1982 episode. The 2 guest characters were also created by Peyo in the 1950s and predate the Smurfs, who took a back seat in their own series to spotlight Johan's plight. Number 2, Gargamel's Sweetheart. Gargamel is seduced by the evil witch Evelyn to capture the Smurfs. Evelyn's fiery red hair turns the old wizard's head and renews his quest to get the Smurfs. And number 1, the Clockwork Smurf, where Handy invents a robot Smurf to take over the work in the village. Soon, Brainy programs the robot to leave the village, and the Clockwork Smurf finds a young prince who convinces the mechanical man to help retake the kingdom from his evil aunt. This one came towards the end of the first season when most shows are struggling to find ideas. Clockwork Smurf was a high watermark for the series and likely energized the rest of the premiere season. Was it a phenomenon? Pfft, yeah! By the time the Smurfs aired in America, the tiny creatures had been going strong for over 2 decades in Europe and was much loved. With that kind of history, children in the US quickly fell in love as well. The Smurfs were a major rating success for NBC, one of the few in the era of Fred Silverman. The series produced 258 episodes from 1981 to 1989, spanning 9 seasons. There were 7 TV specials in addition to the series. The 1976 film, The Smurfs and the Magic Flute, was dubbed in English and released to American audiences in the middle of Smurf Mania in late 1983. The re-release grabbed over $11 million at the box office. The series itself was nominated for several awards. Back-to-back in 1983 and 1984, the Smurfs won Daytime Emmys for Outstanding Children's Entertainment. It would continue to be nominated for Emmys in this category for the remainder of the series' run, but never won again. In the 1980s, the Smurfs were everywhere, and I mean everywhere. Anything that could have a Smurf on it did, from t-shirts and games to cereal, lunchboxes, and toys. All the toys. There were figures and color forms, and all of them sold well. There were drinking glass giveaways through McDonald's and stuffed animals in Toys R Us and KB Toys. When the Smurfs premiered, they were given an hour-long time slot. As their popularity grew, the time slot was expanded to an hour and a half of Saturday morning real estate. It was eventually dropped back down to an hour, but that was towards the end of its run. The Smurfs went off the air of its own accord. By 1989, the series had more than 200 episodes to its credit. It had far outlived all of the shows that premiered with it. In fact, starting in 1981, it can be argued that The Smurfs is the quintessential 80s Saturday morning cartoon. It spanned the decade in a way no other series did. On December 2nd, 1989, the last hour of The Smurfs ran for the first time on NBC in the 10 a.m. time slot. By the time Alvin and the Chipmunks came on at 11, Peyo's Little Blue Friends were history. After these messages, we'll look at what happened to the creators and actors and explore the legacy of The Smurfs.
We'll return to our program after these messages.
This boy is losing his kick. Why is he losing his kick so soon? He didn't fuel up with a good breakfast. Like this good, nutritious breakfast with toast, juice, milk, and yummy Cheerios, which has almost no sugar. When you fuel up in the morning with a Cheerios breakfast,
It'll really get you going.
Let's train cars this time. Your piston pusher with Florida plates for my Texas Turbo Tram.
Kenner's Fast Ones, each sold separately with one-of-a-kind Fast Ones plates from all 50 states and cut-out certificate of ownership.
Neat-looking cars. Look at them go. That's why they call them fast ones. All right.
Fast Ones Piston Pusher, Turbo Tram sold separately from Kenner.
It's juicy new grape flavors. Gotta get through.
No trouble. Introducing the grapest Hubba Bubba ever.
Grape flavor.
New grape flavor Hubba Bubba is soft and juicy, and you can blow amazing no-stick bubbles that won't stick to your face.
They're calling this a grape cream robbery.
Big bubbles, no trouble.
We now return to our program.
Just 3 short years after the Smurfs left network television, series creator Peyo died in Brussels, Belgium on Christmas Eve of 1992. A heart attack claimed his life, though he had been in poor health previously. He was 64 years old and is survived by 2 children. Just 5 years later, in 1997, voice actor Don Messick passed away at the age of 71. In addition to playing Papa Smurf, Messick played Droopy, Astro and the Jetsons, and Hampton J. Pig in the Tiny Toon Adventures. His career was long and impressive and not soon forgotten because of his indelible characters including Scooby-Doo and Papa Smurf. Actor Paul Winchell, the voice of Gargamel, retired in 1999 and passed away in 2005 at the age of 82. In the mid-80s, among his acting chores, he developed a way to breed tilapia fish in Africa to help combat starvation in that region. His daughter April is also a voice actor and currently voices Clarabelle Cow for Disney. Danny Goldman, the legendary Brainy Smurf, passed away in mid-April 2020 from complications after suffering 2 strokes. In addition to the Smurfs, his legacy includes Young Frankenstein and the 1970 MASH movie. He spent 30 years as a casting director, finding talent for Back to the Future, the animated series, and Godzilla, 1985. Lucille Bliss, the voice of Smurfette, continued working as an actress and voice artist. She received her final credit in 2007 at the age of 91. In 1999, she was awarded a former Child Star Lifetime Achievement Award for her role as an evil stepsister in Disney's Cinderella. She passed away at the age of 96 in 2012. Did the Smurfs ever really go away? Well, if you live in Europe, no. The Smurfs are just as popular today in Belgium and Germany as they were in their inception back in the late 50s and early 60s. At last count, there were more than 400 different Smurf figures that had been released since the start of Smurf fandom. Since 1969, there have only been 2 years where no new Smurf figures were added to the family. To date, over 300 million figures have been sold. While Smurf Berry Crunch cereal was introduced in 1983, a limited edition was brought back by Post in 2011 to celebrate the release of the Smurfs movie. That's right, in 2011, the Smurfs got a live-action big-screen movie starring Neil Patrick Harris, Katy Perry, and Jonathan Winters as Papa Smurf. When the movie made more than $500 million worldwide, the sequel was inevitable and arrived 2 years later. In 2017, the Smurfs returned to their animated roots in the computer-generated movie Smurfs: The Lost Village. While the CGI version only brought in $197 million worldwide, I doubt it will kill the franchise. I would bet that the Smurfs will be back in one form or another, and that the cast will be comprised of another generation who watched and loved some iteration of our 3 Apple Tall friends. If you haven't seen any of the vintage Smurfs, check it out. The DVDs are available and it's streaming on Boomerang and other platforms. If you grew up with it, check it out again. I think the Smurfs are worth a repeat, if for nothing more than the nostalgia factor. Hey, who would you cast in a Smurfs remake? Let me know on social media. Until next time, have a Smurfy day. Thanks for tuning in. If you go to patreon.com/SaturdayMorn, you'll find a page where you can help to support the Saturday Morning Podcast. There's a $5 level for general support and a $10 level that unlocks some goodies. At $10 a month, you get entered into a drawing to win a signed production script of an episode, bonus content, a membership card, email priority for all Saturday morning memories and general comments, and a monthly shout out in an episode. As long as you keep supporting us, we'll keep recognizing you. This month, we recognize Scott Gunstream, our first patron. Scott, thanks so much for helping to make these episodes possible. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. Thank you for joining us at the Saturday Morning Podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review wherever you get your episodes. If you'd like to drop us a line, please write to satmornpod@hotmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at satmornpod. If you'd like to support us to create more of these things, find us at patreon.com/SaturdayMorn. Supporters will get extra content and a chance to win behind-the-scenes prizes and given email priority. Do you have any vintage Saturday morning memories? Email your story and we could read it on the next episode.